Okay, what are we going to do in this video? I'm going to take and create a project. I've got it labeled as subproject up here using Gradle init or initialization with Gradle, and it's going to create this structure. Well, I'm going to create some of it, and then we're going to take. I'm going to take the project that I create and then copy it into a solution directory. Rename the project folders, edit the Gradle, build Gradle files, and other configuration settings. Okay. Now the benefits to this is it's going to give us automatic sub-project builds. I'm going to put in unit testing, and I'm going to create a task to generate consolidated ScalaDocs at the root project level. Now the tools I'm using are Mac OS X, which is Unix under the covers, iTerm 2, and Gradle. Okay, now the steps that we're going to do, I know this is kind of small, so bear with me. First I'm going to initialize a new project with Gradle init. I'm going to create the project directory, change to the project directory, run Gradle initialize, or init. Configure the project, edit build Gradle, edit settings.gradle, and create gradle.properties file. I'm going to add some source code, add unit tests, and then I'm going to test the build, fix any problems, and then I'm going to create solution directory, and then I'm going to move the sub-project directory that I created into the solution directory. I'm going to duplicate that, configure each sub-project, and then initialize the solution project with Gradle init. And then I'm going to configure the solution project, test the build, fix any problems, and then I'm going to add a task to the project's Gradle build to create consolidated ScalaDocs. That's a lot to do. So this video is a bit long-winded. Now along the way we're going to set project dependencies between subprojects. Presentation layer, I'm going to use a class from the infrastructure layer to show you how that works. And I'm going to show you how to do build scans, and I'm going to throw in some Spark to do some Spark processing along the way. Just some simple stuff just to show you that it works. Okay. I'm going to follow the steps as presented in the intro. I pull up my terminal here on my Mac, right? Mac is Unix under the covers, obviously. So I have a dev directory. If I change directory to dev, okay, and I do a tree, well, I'll just do a dir here. Okay. I have a couple different development directories, so I'm going to actually have some Spark test code in this project. So I'm going to create this framework underneath of my Spark dev.spark. So cd dev.spark. Okay, and do a dir. All right, so there's nothing in my dev spark. So what I want to do is I want to make a directory for my projects that I'm going to put in here. Okay. Now I want to change to the project, and I'm going to create I guess I'll start off, I'll create the subproject folder, and then configure the subproject folder, configure the build, initialize the Gradle, configure the build Gradle settings, etc., and then get that subproject to build. Okay, add some code to it and get it to build some code and get it to build documentation. Right, and then I'm going to copy that, create another directory or a directory called solution, and then copy that project into the solution. I mean, I could create the solution folder right now if I wanted to, but I'll do that later, just to follow the steps on the intro. So, I'm going to make a dir kdir subdirectory. Now I may change the name of these, obviously, to match the intro slide for presentation. I have a project called presentation layer, business logic layer, data access layer, and infrastructure layer. All right. So, okay. My dir command, since I was a Windows guy before I became a Linux, guy. I just aliased my dir to do ls-al, right? So same thing. This is just an alias, command alias. So I'm going to change to my subdirectory. Now, while I'm here, okay, this is where you do your Gradle init, right? So Gradle's going to put a bunch of stuff in this directory. It takes a couple seconds, right? Well, 1 second actually. So we do a dir, right? Now the first time you do it, I think it takes a little bit longer, right? And it put a Gradle directory. It put, let's do a tree. See what it put here. So I have a build, Gradle build. That's my build file. I'm going to be adding stuff to the build. This is the Gradle wrapper, okay? And with the Gradle wrapper, we can execute this gradle. It's a script file. Okay. Now I can get rid of this batch file. This is a Windows, so if you were running Windows, right, Gradle would put either this Linux. This is the Linux file that we're going to run to build, to kick off the builds. This is a batch file. I'm going to delete the batch file. I don't need it since I'm running Linux, right? So rm Gradle. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Gradle. No wonder. I thought I was having a friggin' I am having a mental attack here. So rm Gradle w .bat. Okay, so now I got rid of that Gradle w.bat after pulling my head out of my booty. So Gradle w is a script file. Settings.gradle. We're going to edit the settings.gradle, and we're going to have another file called properties.gradle, okay, or Gradle properties. So hang on 1 second. Gradle.properties. So I'm going to just vi, well, touch. Gradle properties. All right, so now I have a Gradle properties file. Nothing's in it yet, but we'll put something in it. A settings.gradle, Gradle script, build.gradle, okay, and then there's a .gradle directory. It's got some Gradle stuff in there. We don't need to worry about it. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is create a source directory structure. I'm going to build, like I said at the beginning, a combined Scala Java project here. So I'm going to create make dir source, and then I'm going to create under here. This is the kind of the standard way, the plugins that we're going to use for the Scala like to see the directory structure laid out, right? It could be any way if you use source dirs. Source sets in Gradle, and I'll explain that when we get there. So Scala. So we're going to say source/main. Okay, now we have source main, and then we're going to create a source test, and then we're going to create source main slash Scala, source main slash Java, source main slash resources, right? And then we're going to do the same thing for the test. Scala. It doesn't make any difference what order you do them in. Okay, now we'll do a tree. So there we have our structure. We have our source, main, and test. And then underneath of main, we have Java, resources, and Scala subdirectories. And underneath of test, we have Java, resources, and Scala source directories. Now, underneath of here, you can add, like for example, pulp-free press, right? So if I want to create if you want to keep your code, in package, hierarchical package structures. So now in my Java, so for example, source, I'll go main. So I'm going to create a directory, source, main, let's start with Scala. And I'll say com. And then I'll create a directory called pulp-free press. Okay. And then I'll create a directory under there. Well, actually, right now I'll just leave it like this, because what I want to do is once I get my subprojects sorted out, right? In other words, I get all the subprojects I want for my complete solution. I'll go in here and I'll create whichever one ends up being like the infrastructure layer. I'll complete this and I'll say I'll create another directory called source main Scala com pulp-free press / infrastructure, and then / whatever code directories I need, right? Like utils, comment, whatever, right? So that's how I'm going to do my package structure. Okay. So that's that. Now let's take a look at the tree, right? I'll do the same thing for Java. So right now we have the Scala. They have the source main Scala, right? Laid out for com pulp-free press. I'll do the same thing for the Java side. So make dir Java com and then / obviously you're going to want to not have this name for your package structure, but you can edit it, right? I've posted this code on GitHub, which is in the links below. Okay, so tree. Okay, now we have pretty much, I'm going to make one more directory up at the top layer of the subdirectory. So I'm just going to say libs, in case I want to put some lib files in there, like jar files. Make dir libs. Okay, here we go. Libs. I could probably have put that someplace else, but I'll put it right there. Build.gradle, Gradle wrapper, gradle.properties, gradle script, libs directory, settings.gradle. Okay, now what are we going to do with this? Well, we need to tell the build. We need to edit the Gradle build first off. So I'm going to, I'll just do this here. I'm going to split my window. I'm using iTerm. Shell split horizontally. All right, so I have the ability to split this, and this comes in handy. Let's see. I'll do it like that. About 50-50. I can adjust it. So now I'm down here. cd dev / dev.spark / project / subproject. Oh, subdirectory. Okay. So I want to come back up here and rename that subproject, right? Subconsciously, I guess I must have typed subdirectory. So let's go back up one here, and I'm going to move. Oops, I got to go up. All right. V. Oh. Let's do this. You can tell I'm not a Linux guy. Okay. Now I have a subproject. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So I'm in my subproject folder. Do a tree. Now what I want to do is I want to add some stuff to my build.gradle. So I'm going to use VI. I'll just come up here. Changing my subproject. So I'm going to edit build.gradle. Okay. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to add a Scala plugin. So insert, come on down. I don't even need base. Let's just do Scala. And okay, and that's it for now. We'll just the Scala plugin actually depends on the Java plugin, so you get like both, right? What we could have done actually before. Let me do this before we do this, right? Let me just get rid of this because I want to show you something. So we have this subproject. I'm down here in my bottom window. Okay. Now if we just do ./gradle, Gradle W, right? I guess is what it's called. GRA Gradle W. Tasks or tasks. And it'll list the tasks that are automatically supplied, right? Well, I haven't done anything. So this is straight out of the box, right? All I did was do a Gradle init, and there's no plugins for this subproject, not yet. So you get init, you got the init task, right? I called that in order to initialize. The wrapper is added automatically. The build environment, okay, that's a task. So in other words, the way that you execute these tasks, right? If I go .gradle W, and I go build environment. Then it'll run that task, right? So these are the tasks that you just get kind of out of the box, right? From your basic plugin. All right. Now, back up to my build.gradle file. Okay, so plugins. So this is a closure, right? This is the new way of doing it. Well, new as in whenever. id.scala. Okay. And that automatically makes a dependency on the Java plugin. So you don't need both. Even though you're doing a combined project, Java/Scala, you don't need both to explicitly put both plugins in there. All right, now we're going to add repositories. And I'll just do Maven Central. Maven Central. And then I'll do dependencies. There's going to be a few of these, and yours, right, will depend on exactly what type of project you're building, essentially. So just take this as an example. And then the next thing I'm going to put in here are source sets, a source sets definition. And what source sets let you do is kind of customize where the source files are located in your project. Even though I usually use the default structure, I just like to have the source sets defined. So and I'll implement each of these. So now I'll start with the dependency. Well, let's start with the source sets, I guess. So I'm going to have the main source set. I'll do it this way. And obviously we have a test. Main test. Now underneath the main, we have Scala. We have Java. And resources. Now up here in Scala, this is where we have the source strs. Okay, property. And here we're just going to give it the path relative to the subproject. So this is where I'm sticking my Scala files. Right here. Now for my Java, it'll be similar, except it'll just have source mains Java. Now, there's probably already, obviously you can download my project structure, right? But the nice thing about going through all this by hand is, you know, you get a feel for how things are set up. Source strs equals source slash main slash resources. And of course, mine's not the only structure out there. There's other structures. Okay, you can prettify it however you want, but for me, that's good enough. Okay, so test. So the same. Oops. So underneath the test, I have the same structure essentially, right? I have Scala. I'll just do it this way for now. Java. And resources. All right, so see, I keep on trying to use my cursor. All right. Source strs. If I knew how to use VI worth a damn, I would probably save a lot of time here typing, but it's kind of nice to go slow and pace yourself. Source slash test in this case, right? Slash Scala. And then come down to Java. And do the same thing. source/test/Java. Yeah, okay, so this is a little bit tedious, right? But the nice thing is, once you get your sub-project set up, you're going to copy, for the most part, just the whole directory or duplicate it. And so a lot of this stuff you don't have to do again. Just a few minor property settings and you're done. Which is nice, right? Okay, so and that's it for the source sets. I'll pretty this up down here. Okay. Just like that. Okay. Now dependencies. So dependencies are where you put, like what packages you need or jar files you need to download. Okay, you have a couple different types of dependencies you might need to put in there. One dependency will be a dependency on, whatever project this is or sub-project this is. This project might depend on another project before it can compile. This is where you would set, make the ability for one project to wait before it builds until the other project that it depends on builds, right? So that's one type of dependency. We'll set that later once we copy the projects and name them to what we want. But for the most part, all these guys are going to depend on. You can put comments in here too. So Scala. So compile. Now while I'm here, I want to kind of show you what how you can use the gradle.properties to make the build file a little bit more flexible, right? Instead of embedding some of these dependency version numbers for these things that we're going to depend on, like let me just give you an example. org.apache Spark. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong line. org.apache. org.scala. .lang. Okay. Scala. Library. Colon. And now I'm going to do this. Plus. And you're probably wondering, like, where'd that Scala version come from? Well, I'll show you here in a second. Compile. org.scala. Lang. Scala. Reflect. Plus. Okay. So let me just. I'm going to quit this for a second. Well, actually, I'll just write it. And then I'm going to come down here to this window. So I'm in the same directory. Okay. And I've just edited. And obviously, I've got this gradle.swap file, right? So my build.gradle is still being edited. And I'm going to edit this gradle properties file. And I'm going to add some stuff to it. Okay. Now, so vi.properties. So it's completely blank. I'm going to insert here, and I'm just going to add a comment up here at the top. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, oops. Gradle.properties. So I say add project wide property settings. And then finish off that comment. This is only for my gratification. I like to know what these files are for when I'm poking around years from now. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a property, Scala version. And the version of Scala I'm using is 2.11.12. I know they have a newer version of Scala, but I'm going to be using Spark, and so the version of Spark that I'm using depends on this particular version of Scala. Okay. Now, while I'm here, I'm just going to add all the other versions that I need, right? These version properties. Spark version. Okay. Scala test version. Now, how can you find out, like, where these versions and what versions depend on what? I'll show you that here in a second. JUnit version. So we're going to be using JUnit to test, obviously. And last, Scala XML version. Okay. So, save this. Oops. Escape. Right. Bang. All right. So now let me show you, right? I'm going to pull up a browser. This is Safari. I'm on a Mac. Okay. Now if I go to Scala Lang. Right. So, you know, if you're using, here we got 2.12, right? So if you go to the libraries, at least this is the way I do it. There's probably a better way, right? So if you click on 2.11, right, and look for just 2.11, okay. Filtered by the Scala language. Okay, so here we have Scala, right? So you pull down like the version of Scala. Here we got Scala library. So if you're using 2.11.12 like I am, okay, you select that. Wait till it pops in 2.11.12, and then it'll tell you that the library that you're depending on obviously is 2.11.12, right? You take a look at this, right? Blah, blah, blah. There's different selections you can make. And then you'd have to do the same thing at Apache. And depending on, like, in this particular case, I'm going to be using some Spark libraries. Apache will say, well, this version of Spark was built with this version of Scala. So then that's where you get the relationship between the two. And that's kind of just, you know, an aside. Okay, next. So I'm going to add a few more up here. Now that I've got these other version properties defined. Oops. Now this is probably just a labor. The real primary things I need to do is I'm going to put in my test. I'm going to leave a space. Test compile. org.scalatest. Scala test underscore 2.11 plus Scala test version. Okay. And then another test compile. JUnit. JUnit. JUnit test. Version. Okay. Remember, I'm pulling these values from here. I put them in my Gradle properties. And I'll leave another space there. Test runtime. And capitalization makes a difference. It's case sensitive. Or .scala. lang modules Scala.xml underscore 2.11 Scala XML version. Okay, now if we didn't need Spark, we could go ahead and do a test build right here. Well, there's no source files, right? So eventually we're going to add some source files to this stuff. So we could create a library, but I'm going to put the Spark stuff in, even though I'm not going to use it in this particular layer. Well, you know, I'm just going to put it in there because I'm going to duplicate these, and they're in the code that you can get off my GitHub file or GitHub site. And so if you want to delete the stuff, add stuff, it's up to you. But in order to save you the misery here of me typing all this stuff in, I'm just going to copy and paste. See, this is the beautiful thing about Mac. All right. Okay, now I have this another directory. So we don't need this anymore, right? You see where these properties come from? They're in the gradle.properties file. Okay, so I'm gonna get out of here. All right, clear. All right, now I have a libs, right? Have a libs directory. I'm going to add a compile dependency on that libs directory, whatever might be in there. So compile file tree. Libs. Okay. Now, like I say, later we'll come back and we'll add another dependency, and I'll put a little comment up here. Project dependency, right? So I've written this file. Now we can let's add some code. Once we add some code, well, actually we can build. There's no files there, right? So if we test this build, we're in the subproject. The first thing we know, we added this Scala, right, plugin. We've established our repository, Maven Central. We created our source sets, okay, in the build.gradle, and we've added our dependencies for what we're going to do right now. So we can say gradle w task. All right. Oh, it says so. Now here we go, right? It says failure built with exception. We have to go to build.gradle line 65. I don't have line numbers on here. It's going to be down by the end here. Source sets main. So let's take a look. What could possibly be the problem? Okay, well, it's pretty easy in this case, because if we look down here, it'll tell us. It'll say could not set unknown property sourcedir. So right here in my file, I have left off the S. So I'm going to come in here and put an S. Do another quick check. And then this is why it pays to run the, if you just run the tasks, right, it tries to configure your project. Okay, so we were successful. Now let's scroll up here. and take a look at all the tasks that were added. So just by adding the Scala plugin, we have assemble, build, build dependents, build needed, classes, clean, jar, test classes, right? Init wrapper, Java doc, and Scala doc. So we can build documents, Java docs and Scala docs in the subproject, right? All we got to do now is add some code. All right, so I'm going to need to pull up a code example, and I can close this. I can quit this right here. Okay. So, all right, time for some code. Actually, before I add code, I think what I want to do is copy. Well, let's just do a build, right? See what happens. We'll do gradle build. So it ran the build. And now we have a build file, or a build directory, I should say. If we take a look at the build, let's do a tree on the build. And there's nothing there. There's no output classes, right? So we have nothing, obviously, right? But all our tasks, the tasks are working. So what I want to do now is I want to create the solution directory, and I want to move my subproject into my solutions directory, and then I want to copy those, and then I'm going to start editing these subprojects to create my multi-project build. Okay, so here's where we're going. We're going to go back up to the root directory, and I'm going to create one called solution directory. All right, and we're going to move -r subproject to solution. Okay, so we're going to move the subproject to the solution. Maybe that did it. Okay, so cd, let's do tree solution. Yep, my Linux commands are not that great. Okay, so we have the solution, and then we have one subproject. So let's change into the solution directory. There's my subproject, and what I want to do is I want to rename it I'm going to rename the subproject to infrastructure layer. All right, now I want to copy infrastructure layer to business logic layer. So now I've got two subdirectories, right? Two subprojects. And now I'm going to create a data access layer. So I'll just copy that one. Same thing, infrastructure layer to data. Okay. And one more, presentation. Now do a directory. So I have 4 subprojects underneath of my solution. We'll do a tree. Well, it'll just scroll off the screen. Okay. But there we go. I'm in the solution directory and I have 4. Now what we want to do, okay, is I want to do Gradle init in the right here where I'm at in this solution directory. Gradle init. And that'll add all the Gradle stuff for the solution, for the topmost project. And my solution is going to be my topmost. If you're familiar with like Visual Studio, right? They have a solution, and then they have sub-projects in the solution. This is kind of how I'm setting this up. Okay, I have all my sub-projects in there. I have my solution. Now what I need to do is I need to edit my settings Gradle for my solution. I'm gonna go back, and also I'm gonna edit my settings and my build to for each of these sub projects. But most of the heavy lifting is done at this point. There's, except for a few settings, property settings, right, just to make sure that everything builds right. A little tweaks to these, to customize the names of these sub projects, and then add some code to my build Gradle. And then I'm going to have, I don't even need a properties Gradle, not at my root level, not right now anyway. And then I need to add some code to my settings Gradle. So I think I'll start with my settings Gradle at my solution level. So I'm editing solution settings Gradle. So let's go up there. Okay, so it's a blank file, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a comment at the top. This is my settings.gradle. So bear with me here. This is like housekeeping chores. Okay. Hang on a second. Just make sure I'm not doing this wrong. So I have settings.gradle. So VI. All right, yep, I was going to say, I was editing the wrong file. Okay, because this stuff is already put in there for you, right? If you open up a blank file for your settings.gradle, you've done something wrong. So the base name, and this is fine, right? This is the comments are already put in there. This is a project, the rootProject.name. So when you do an initialization or an init, a Gradle init, it creates the settings.gradle file, and it automatically names the rootProject.name property to whatever directory that you're in. Okay, but I need to add some stuff here to say, hey, there's some sub projects that you need to think about. Okay. Now the way that we do that is we use an include. Okay, so include, and we just list the projects. Infrastructure layer, comma, data. Now it's going to evaluate these in alphabetical order. So if you're trying to, if you don't have the way that we solve that problem, right? So in other words, if I need the infrastructure layer to build first, followed by the data access layer, if I have these dependencies on which project should build before the other, you have to set that in the project. You have to tell the data access layer that it needs to wait on the infrastructure layer, etc. Right? So I'll get into that here in a second. And then business logic layer. And then finally presentation layer. Okay, and that's it. So that says, hey, this solution is includes infrastructure layer, business logic, or business access layer, or data access layer, excuse me, business logic layer, and presentation layer. So let's write this. And I think we're done with that. And now we have to go to the build.gradle. So we've got the settings.gradle set up for the solution. What I want to do now is I want to go into each of the sub-projects. That's really the next thing that you should do. You want to edit some settings. So I'm going to start off with infrastructure layer. So I'm going to go into my infrastructure layer project. And of course, you know, whatever you name your projects that's where you want to do, right? So, and then I want to edit the settings. So here's where it came up with the name, right? They were all subdirectory when I created it, right? Then I renamed it subproject. But I want to insert here, and when I call this infrastructure layer. Infrastructure layer. Okay. Escape. Now, I will need to go to my build. No, okay. So the infrastructure layer doesn't depend on anything, right? Well, at least not in my thing, right? It's the bottommost, or it's the layer that every project's probably going to depend on. But it builds first. It doesn't depend on any other project to build, so I don't need to edit my Gradle. Okay. So my build.gradle file should be okay. All right, now, so I think we're done. You know, in case I forget something, we'll come back to it. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to change directory to data access layer. And we're going to edit the settings. Okay. So we're going to change the name of the project. Oops, I keep forgetting to hit insert. Data access layer, escape. Now I'll come back out of here. Okay. And I'm going to just go cd business. Well, actually, I want to do one thing. So the data access layer actually has a compile dependency on the infrastructure. So I need to go back into, right? I don't need to change directory. I'm just going to do it. cd data access layer build.gradle. All right, and then insert. I'm going to come down here and my project. Okay. All right, so for my project, I'm going to say compile. So I'm going to set a compile dependency on the project. Just like that. Okay. So now this tells the data access layer that before it can build, it has to compile the infrastructure layer. Now, while I'm here, actually, since I know now, right, since I know what my project name is, right, this is the data access layer, I'm going to escape. I'm going to go into my CD. Let's go. I'm going to have to do the same thing to my infrastructure layer. So, right, I need to edit. I need to add a directory. So let's do a tree. I'm going to do this. Okay, so source, right? So here I've got source main Java com pulp free press. I'm going to add pulp free press slash this is data access. So I'm going to just say data, right? Or data access. Either one. Let me see. I'll make up my mind here. So make dir source / main / Scala / com / pulp free press. And now I want to make this, I'll say data, right? Data, just data. Data access. Data. I don't know if you should have spaces in it. I'll just say data. Heck with it. Like that. Pulp free press, data access. Data. I'll just leave it data. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same for Java. I'm not going to mess around with the resources. Okay, so do a tree for the source. Source main. Now if we put files in here, right, we can add further subdirectories, but this is our primary. Okay, now let's do the same thing for infrastructure layer. Okay, so make dir. Infrastructure. And then one for the Scala. Okay. So that's what the source looks like now. The source, so main, Scala, main Java com, pulp free press, infrastructure, and then Scala com, pulp free press, infrastructure. And then we go back up to business logic. Business logic layer. And we need to edit the build. Well, first off, let's edit the settings. All right, and we need to change this to project name to data access layer. I mean, business logic layer. You can get turned around a little bit. Business logic layer. Okay. And then we edit the build. And we need to add a project dependency on the data access layer. All right, now one more, presentation layer. All right. So we come down here. This is the presentation layer. Once we get all these set, then we can build from the solution level, and everything will build. Bing, bang, boom, right? There's nothing else that you would need to do. So, escape. Now let's set the compile dependency on the project down. So the presentation layer is going to depend on the business logic layer. Okay. Now let's go back up to the solution layer. Now, so we need to test, right? So at the solution layer, we'll say /gradle. Now, so we're going to test it at this level, but I'll show you how from the solution you can build individual projects as well. So Gradle build. Well, let's do it clean. If there's any problems, that'll find it. CD. Oops. Wrong command. It's Gradle W. Clean. So if there's a problem in our code, right, it'll give us a problem here, but it looks like it ran fine, you know, but we'll have to check. Now if we do a build, it's just /gradle. It's /gradle W because I'm using the Gradle plugin, right, and I'm running it via that script. So build. Now it should build in order. We should say infrastructure building. That was pretty fast. Let's see what we got here. Oh, you know what? I didn't edit build. There's a problem. Let's go back into, let's see here. Well, before I go poking around too much farther, so I need to get the switch for the verbose mode so I see more of an output. But let's see here. So we're in the solution. I want to do a dir for the presentation. So now there's a build directory that got output there. So let's do a dir presentation layer build. Okay, libs temp. Right, so there was nothing really in there. There's no code. Let's say we got to add some code. That's our problem, right, at this point. Now I think we're ready. So we can also check let's do a dir on infrastructure layer. Well, first off, let's do this, right? If we do Gradle W clean, and then go checking those directories, make sure that they're all dir infrastructure layer. Right, so the build directory's gone. Okay. Now, if I build, if I do, yeah, so I'll check the other one. I'll check business logic layer. Build directory's gone. They're all gone. Data access layer. Okay. Now, if I run the task again, build. Okay. So now if we do a dir for data access layer, we see there's a build directory that got output. And business logic layer. Okay. All right. Let's add some code. I'm going to add a library to the infrastructure layer, and that's where we'll start. All right, in the infrastructure layer, I'm going to add a couple source files and a unit test, so we can check out the unit testing as well. I'll just do some cutting and pasting to speed things along here. So cd infrastructure layer. Okay, now I'm going to do a tree on the source. Just get a feel for the structure. And so now what I want to do is, since I have this main Java com, right? I'm going to create a util. So I'm going to make a new directory underneath of infrastructure. So make dir source / main / Scala / com poultry press infrastructure utils. All right, and now I'm going to do the same for the Java. Okay, and now I'm going to do a tree. Okay, so now we have our utils directory. Now I want to create a file. I want to say vi source main Scala com poultry press infrastructure utils, and I want to call it so I'm in Scala com poultry press infrastructure utils. I'll say library .scala. I'm going to just create a file called library. Insert. Okay. So at the top, I'm going to put in a ScalaDoc comment. Okay. And I'm going to give it a package structure as well. And I'm just going to copy the code in there. So, all right, so we have package com.poultrypress.infrastructure.utils. That's our package. And class library sumdef. Okay. And alrighty. So all this method this class does, it has one method called sumLibrary method, and it returns true. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to create a test for this library. Okay. So I'm going to create, I don't have the same package structure for my test, not yet anyway, so source test / Scala. And I'm going to just call this library test library suite. Okay. All right, so insert here. And I'm going to pull in this code here. Like I say, this code's available on the website. Okay, escape. And I'm going to create another class, which I call Signaler. And it's a Java class, so there'll be two. There'll be some Scala code and some Java code, right? So okay, and this will be in the source main Java com poultry press package Signaler. Okay. And I'm just going to copy the code. All right. So we have this class called Signaler, and all it does is just print out a message, right? And it's just to have a Java class in there that we're going to call. Okay. So the only thing that the unit test is doing is it's testing the Scala library, and I'm not doing a unit test for the Java code. So escape. Not right now. Now we can build, right? We're up here. We can actually build right here. We can say at this level. We'll do a clean first. And then we'll do a build. I'm in the infrastructure layer. So you see the compile Scala. Now that there's something in there, it's going to show you some things that it's doing. It's compiling the Scala. Then we should see a test. Or the result of a test, I should say. Test compile Scala. So it's executing. Compile test Scala. And we have a failure. Well, we expect that sometimes, right? Okay, so we go to line 8, type not found, library suite. All right, so let me track down this problem. Okay, so just taking a look at the error code, it says, hey, can't find type library. So let's go edit that library suite or the test, and essentially I probably need to add a line here. Oops, insert, to make sure I import the com pulp press dot infrastructure, and then just everything in that thing in the package, and then hit escape. Right. Let's see if this works. And then build. Okay. So everything looked like it built fine there. So we have a test. Now let's take a look at the output. Actually, let's run ScalaDoc. Or yeah, we could do both. We could say Gradle ScalaDoc. Can't find it. ScalaDoc. So this should build docs, and then we can go open up the docs. All that just says is classes are not in the main, sources main. Okay. Okie dokie. So what we want to go do is open up a browser, and let's navigate to that file. Open file. Users, Swodog, dev, Spark, projects, solution. We'll get there one of these days. Infrastructure layer, build, docs, ScalaDoc, index. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so we only have, well, we have com, root, package, library. We have a library. That's it. That's all we got. This is pretty nice, right? Okay. So we got our docs generated. Now we could run Java doc too, right? Oh, I shouldn't have closed that browser. File, open file. So, oh good, at least I don't have to navigate again. So we got docs. Let's go back up here. Infrastructure, build, docs, ScalaDoc. All right, don't look like my, I might have to go check, see why my Java docs didn't build. So let's go take a look here. All right, it says Spark infrastructure layer, build classes, Java main. Oh, where's say? Oh, I got to build. Let's do a build. Well, I did a build. Let's do this. We're going to clean everything, then build everything. I'm in the infrastructure layer. Run the tests, and then do the documentation. Okay. So now let's pull up the browser. Dev, Spark, projects, solution, presentation layer, build. Okay. There are no docs. There are no docs. All right, so we need to. Oh. All right. Let's go find out why. Oh. Cancel. Okay, so it looks like I'm not building my Java docs, and I'm not compiling my Java source file. So let's go back in here and do a VI on build.gradle, and maybe we can debug. You're going to have to do this. Okay, there's the problem right there. So insert. I said, hey, my source dirs for my Java is pointing to my Scala. I should have caught that at the very beginning. So while I'm here, let me just scroll down, make sure everything else looks good. So source test Scala, source test Java, source test resources. Okay. I'm going to have to make this change for all my projects because I've copied it, right? So that bug is in there. That's one of the problems about copying stuff. So CD, I'm just going to go up to the solution layer, and I'm going to edit data access layer, build.gradle, insert, come down here. This should be a fast fix. And of course the bug is there. Okay, so let me change. That's the thing about doing live stuff. All right, now I'm going to do data access, business logic layer. Insert, fix that one. Once you get these sub-projects running and they're working good, then everything works perfectly from the root. You can build from the root, and you don't usually have to touch them again. But that's pretty much the way I found Gradle to be, right? Was, you know, it's pretty powerful. But you had to get things, you know, if you build this yourself, and I recommend kind of going through it yourself. I mean, you can download solution from everyone else, right, and take a look at how they do it. Everyone's requirements are a little bit different, right? But you know, until you get in here and actually make mistakes, fix them, debug the issues. That's when you really, start to learn like what's going on. Okay. Now let's go back to, well, I can build, so I'll show you how to build from the root, right? So if I want to build gradle w, you go like this. I'm at the root, I'm at the solution level, and I want to build the infrastructure project just by itself. Infrastructure layer, right? And then give it the task. I believe this is how you do it. Okay. So it's compiling the, oh, there we go. See, compile layer Java. It's compiling the Java. That doesn't mean this won't have problems, right? But once we get these type of issues sorted out for each sub-project, then we can build everything from the root, and everything will build. You know, the Scala docs, the Java docs will build. And then I'll show you how to build Consolidated. That'll be the last couple steps here, and we're almost there. So just hang in there. This has been a long video, but we're going step by step on how to do this stuff, right? Some people like long videos. Some people need short, sweet, to the point. I personally, you know, the more experienced you get, the less likely you are to sit through one of these long videos. I totally get it, right? But there's people out there, and rightly so, like myself when I was starting out, right? I appreciated everything that people did to show me step by step how to do stuff. Okay, so now let's open up a browser, right? And let's navigate to the infrastructure layer, build. Okay, well, we haven't generated the docs yet, so cancel. Let me just minimize this. Okay, so we built, right? So now we want to generate the Scala doc. Okay. And Java doc. I don't know if they both generate the same, but let's see what happens. I think at this point, right, it's separate documents. So you're going to get a Scala doc, and you're going to get separate Java docs. But I'm going to show you how to combine here in a second. So now let's bring back up the browser. And let's navigate to docs. There we go. See, we have a docs directory. See, we have Java doc, right? Index. And there's our trusty Java doc stuff. So we have a signaler class. I like Java docs. They look nice. Okay, and then let's go to the Scala doc. Index. And there's our Scala doc. Okay. So at this point, I'd say we have our sub-projects all squared away. So now I'm at the solution level. Okay. And I have been there for a while. Clear. Let me close this down. Escape. You know, now that I'm building, see, I was not building. Well, let me see. I think this is fine here. So, quit. All right. Okay, I'm at my, I'll go up here. I'm at my solution level. So now up here I could say build, right? Which, well, you've already seen. Gradle W. Let's do clean, build, and ScalaDoc. So we're going to clean everything. We're going to build everything, and we're going to generate ScalaDocs and JavaDoc and run all the tests. Well, there's only code in the infrastructure layer, right? So we might want to add, we're going to add code for the other layers. Because right now we're only building stuff in the infrastructure layer. and there's nothing in the resources, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so we're done. With this piece. Now, the next phase, we're going to add some code up in the, let's see. Guess we could go to the, let's just go to the, we'll skip the other layers. I mean, we'll do presentation layer, add an application, because I want to show you how to add another plugin. And this video is long already. So we need to get to the root project and show you how to do the consolidated ScalaDocs. But it'd be nice to have the presentation layer actually run something for you. Okay, so let's do that next here. Okay, so the source code for the presentation layer, so I'm going to put some code in there to actually create a Spark project, and we're going to process a file that I'm going to download off of the Gutenberg project, right? Just a book, a text file version of a book. So to get started, I'm going to create, let's change to the presentation layer. Okay, and then I'm going to create a file. Well, let's see. Let's do a tree on the source. All right, so we have pulp free press. So I'm going to make another subdirectory under here and under here for presentation, and then I'm going to add the files, right? Okay, so let me just do a make directory, source, main, Scala, pulp free press. Presentation. Okay. And then the same thing for the Java. All right, so let's do clear and do a tree for the source. Okay, so we have I have my package structure in there, right? And now I'm going to create a file. vi source main Scala pulp free press presentation, and I'm going to call this Spark base.scala. Spark base.scala. Okay, insert, and again I'm just going to copy code to speed this piece up here. And I will add, I guess I'll add a Scala doc up here. Like that. Okay, so all this base class does is just create a Spark context and makes it available. All right, with a method. Okay, so Spark, well actually, right, it's a base class. Okay, so escape, all right, quit. Now, I'm going to create another file called main app, and this one's going to be an object. Insert. Okay, so Control V. Now, this is an object, right? Scala main app is we need this because this is where our main app class, the main app class has a main method, right? So def main args string array. The first thing it does, it prints out hello world, then it creates an instance of Spark base. Okay, and I'm going to use this file called plato.txt. Okay, it's in the I'll show you how I got it. but it's in my code on GitHub, right? It's part of that project structure, so you have something to play around with. And then I process it with a few Scala commands, right? Then I do a line separator, and then I create an instance of signaler, which is a Java class, right? And then I call a method signal on the signaler object. And that's pretty much it. Now the only thing is that this Plato.text, right, class or text file should be in the presentation layers projects directory. Okay, so I need to download the file. I could copy it, but I'll show you how I downloaded it. So in case you wanted to play around with Spark and you're looking for text files, right? Project Gutenberg is a great place. All right, so escape, right. And before I quit, note I'm importing com.utils.pulpfreepress.infrastructure.utils, right, which is where the signaler class is defined. Okay. All right, so escape. Now let's go to Project Gutenberg. All right, so now you could download anything, right? But let's take a look on Plato. I think I did Plato's Republic. It doesn't matter, right? You could download anything. And then you can download it in plain text, right? Which is what I did. So there it is. So File, Save As. Now I'm going to save it. Make sure I'm in the right directory here, right? So this is in Spark presentation layer. I'm going to save it as Plato. Plato.text, because that's what I'm looking for. Oh, cancel. Let me do this. All right, presentation layer. I'm going to say Plato.txt. Okay. So let's go. We're in the presentation layer here. So we have Plato.text, and we can say more. So there we have some of it right there, right? So quit. All right. Now, before we can run the presentation layer project, we have to edit the build, and we're going to add another plugin. So VI, we're in presentation layer. So I'm going to come down here, insert, and underneath of Scala, I'm going to put ID application. Okay. And then I need to add, I'll put it down here at the bottom. Well, you could put it anywhere, I reckon. Okay. So since the application or presentation layer is going to have a main method that's going to run, right? Once everything compiles, we need to tell Gradle, especially for this plugin right here, what the main class name is. So we're going to say main class name equals main app. And that should be that, so clear. So now let's go ahead and go back up to the solution layer. And let's clean everything. So /gradle w clean build. Now, will there be an error? Perhaps, but we'll see. So we clean everything, and then we compile all the Scala and the Java. Run the tests in the infrastructure layer. And then once we run all the tests, now it's building the distribution for the presentation layer, and it should run the main app class, and we should see some Spark stuff scroll by. Oh, it's not going to run yet. I have to actually do one more thing. Okay, so it built. It built, right? Now if I do gradle run, now it should run the main app. So that's the run task. Okay, so it did. So it ran, and it ran successfully. So here's the output. So words in Plato's Republic. And then we have another output, unique words in Plato's Republic. Okay, and then we have signal sent from main app class. All right, so now, how do we get the next step? So we've got all the subprojects set up. We have infrastructure, data access layer. They all build fine. I only have code in the infrastructure layer and the presentation layer. I have an application in the presentation layer. At the solution layer, at the solution level, right? So here I'm in the solution, okay, folder. If I do a dir, I see I have my business logic layer directory, data access directory, infrastructure layer directory, presentation layer. I need to do one more edit in order to get the ScalaDocs to build for all the subprojects and stick them in the base or in the root solution project, okay? And while I'm at it, I'm going to add the ability to do build scans, okay? So in order to save you guys a bunch of me typing, I'm just going to copy the code. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to edit the solution level build.gradle. All right, come down here, insert. Oops. Just give me an insertion point, and I'm just going to copy the code, and then I'll explain it. Okay, so let me scroll up here. So I'm going to start with the plugins. There's if you want to add build scan capability, you have to add the com.gradle.build-scan plugin. And then the trick to get all the stuff to build for the consolidated Java docs is to have an all projects closure at the solution or the root project level. And I apply the plugin base. You probably don't even need to apply these plugins, but I did. And then apply plugin Scala. Okay. You don't need to do the application plugin. And then in this all projects closure, there's a, you add the repositories. Excuse me. Let's go back here. Oops. Let's just, oops. All right, I didn't want to write that, so. Okay, so plugins, apply plugin base, apply plugin Java, apply plugin Scala, and then repositories. All these are in all projects, right? And then we have a build scan. This goes with this plugin up here. Okay. I've got always publish commented out, but I'll show you what happens here. If I uncomment all publish always, I'll show you what that does. And then for my task, I have a docs task. Let me just okay, so the docs task, here's a task. I'm creating a new task at the in the build.gradle file for the solution. The task is named docs. It's of type ScalaDoc, comma. Then there's a description. Okay. And then this, because this is a task, right? Name. I prefaced the task name to the properties that the ScalaDoc type is looking for. So destination dir. I'm going to set it to. It runs it in the solution. Whatever this builder is, it's where the task is run from. So if we're running it from the solution, it's going to put the consolidated ScalaDocs into the build directory docs folder under ScalaDoc. And then set the title. Subprojects, each proj, right? And then for each task, right, name ScalaDoc. And each of those subprojects, gather up the source for all the Java and all the Scala. Add the class paths, and then any excludes and includes, and then that's it. So what that does, it goes through all the subprojects, and then adds all the source for the Scala and for the Java, and then it runs the ScalaDoc task. So let's give this thing a test drive, right? Along with the build scan, and then this is it. Pretty much, I'm done, right? So let's just exit out of here. Now clear. All right, so I'm at the solution level. I'm going to do a Gradle W, clean, build, and then docs. Now what'll happen is there won't be any docs generated, I don't think, for the subdirectories. It'll all be up in the root directory for all the stuff that's in there. So let's do this. Okay. I'm not doing a build. The scan's going to automatically execute the build scan, and I'll show you what that's all about. So we're doing the compile, testing, infrastructure layer, okay, presentation layer. Now we're building the application. We're not going to run the app. We're just building, and we're generating the ScalaDocs. I could speed up the video, but it's nice to spend time with you guys. Okay, look, if you have any questions about this stuff, hit me up directly at rick@pulpfreepress.com. So now it says publishing the build scan. Everything looked like it built fine. So what you do is you take this URL, copy it, stick it into your browser, and it'll say, hey, I'm going to say remember me, activate it. Okay. So what it'll do, it'll send me an email. Let me go check my email. at Pulp Free Press. Once it sends it, shouldn't be too long now. Hope everyone can see this. To verify that I am who I say I am. And then we get a graphical view of the build, which is kind of nice. I'm checking my inbox. There we go. Gradle. Okay, so discover your build. Okay. So this is the build that I just did. So it gives you a summary of the tasks that were executed. Okay, 56-second total build time. Okay, then you can take a look at the console output. This is pretty much the exaggerated version. Let me close the email of what's scrolled up here, right? And you can change the level, the logging levels. Okay, timeline, performance, tests that were run. So here it shows the tests. We can click on this one. All right. Projects. Here's our solution with our 4 sub-projects. All right. Dependencies. Okay, for each sub-project. Infrastructure layer has a bunch of dependencies, right? All right. Plugins, these are the plugins that are being used. Switches, okay. I didn't put any specific switches on there. Okay, but these scans, because in the in the build Gradle, right? Because I activated or I uncommented this publish always. Okay, they will always publish the build scan and give you a URL to it. If you don't want that to happen all the time, you come in here and you just comment out that line. Okay, I don't necessarily want to do a build scan every time. Sometimes if you're trying to debug your build, it comes in obviously very handy. But that's it. Now you have a multi-layer, sub-project solution that generates, oh, we didn't even check out the ScalaDocs at the top level, right? Let's do that before we sign off for good here. So I'm going to open up a file. Now this time I'm going to the solution layer. I should have a build docs, right? I don't have any code in the solution layer. But now I should see all the Java files and the Scala files, but the library or signaler is a Java, right? And it pretty much gives you the members as if they were Scala, right? So we have library and we have the signaler. So it combines all your docs. That's pretty nice, I think. So that's a neat feature to have. And let's just verify that it didn't generate docs down at the bottom. So we'll do a dir, or do a tree. Let's just pick presentation layer, build, and let's scroll up here. Yep. So there's no docs. There's no docs folder. There's classes, distributions, lib, scripts, temp, and no docs. All right. You can still generate the documents for the sub projects. You just have to do this. You know, /gradle, Gradle W. And then, you know, if you want to build ScalaDocs, just do ScalaDocs. Like that. Well, ScalaDoc. Okay. And then it'll build ScalaDocs for all your projects. But it puts those ScalaDocs in each sub-project, not at the root level. And that's really just it. If you have any questions, comments, like I say, hit me up, rick@pulpfreepress.com. I know this has been an excruciatingly long video, but I think those who need the help will probably appreciate it. All right. Have a great day.